Hey, everybody, welcome to the Strive Summit podcast. I'm your host, Alex Hanna, and today with me I have Simon Dilhas. Simon, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, kind of let people know where you're at and kind of who you are.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for inviting me here. My name is Simon. At the moment I'm co-founder and CEO of Abstract, but I started out as a architect in Austria actually, and now I ended up in Switzerland with some path in between.
Switzerland sounds like a beautiful place to end up. So,
Uh,
so
could be
everyone
worse.
listening,
Yes.
it could be, yeah. So everyone listening right now, I'm in the west coast of the U.S., so I'm currently midnight. Simon is actually just waking up at 8. So
Yes.
we're both trying to do this podcast and meet up. So I'm very happy, Simon, you can join us for this. So,
Yeah.
Simon, I definitely want to talk about how BIM in Europe is different from the US. And I
Mhm.
definitely want to know about any like exciting technologies that are happening out there or something that's like really getting you excited on top
Mhm.
of abstract BIM. And we're going to talk about that later, your
Sure.
company as well. So, kind of tell me what you're excited for in the future and what it looks like over there in Europe.
Okay. What I see in Europe is, but Open BIM is quite the topic. So
Okay.
I guess much more than in the US. So, for example, in Switzerland, Revit has a market share, I guess, from 10%, and the rest is Archicad and Vectorworks.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
so
That's
really
interesting.
different landscape.
Yeah.
And
So,
yeah,
so what tech is out there? So I'm assuming that Autodesk is 10% market out in Europe, right? That's what you're saying. There's a lot of these different
in
programs out
Switzerland,
there.
in Switzerland, it's
Okay, in
really
Switzerland.
different in different countries. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of technology in Switzerland are you seeing out in the field or being developed for like your progress that you're doing?
Okay. I guess we do have the usual BIM tools in
Hmm.
Switzerland. So Solibri is quite big.
Okay.
BIM Collab Zoom, but everything is focused on IFC, more or
Yeah.
less.
Okay. So do you guys do laser scans then? Do you guys
Yes, of
do
course.
okay, so
Yes.
laser scans, you guys use
Lasers.
prisms and point layout and stuff like that?
Yes, yes.
Awesome.
So the
Yes.
moment it goes in the direction of the construction site, all the usual stuff. Yeah.
That's awesome. So some of our listeners might not know what the usual stuff is. So I'd like
Yes.
I would definitely love for you to elaborate a little bit on what the usual stuff is because I know in Switzerland the usual stuff is different from here in the U.S. So why don't you go on talk about how if there's different tech other than laser scan? Are you guys using drones?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so using drones for like surveying, layout, and then probably for like production, kind of time framing the construction through.
Yes. So actually, it's quite funny. I give classes on BIM management,
Okay.
and in these classes, we do have construction managers. So real hardcore guys who work on the construction site
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
planners. And it's like the first time we talk to each other in these classes.
I can
And
imagine the conversations happening.
yeah,
That's
but big fun, big fun. So
I'm sure
I
it is.
create this safe environment so what we can
Okay.
exchange. And yeah, the planners always say, yeah, we would produce BIM models if the construction company would use them.
Oh, so maybe it's not so different than the U.S.
And the
um,
construction guys said, we are ready. We have these tools. We can measure. We would love to use the BIM model for it, but your models suck. We're not georeferenced.
that's actually a very similar story. Yeah, we're definitely the communication between the BIM department and the workflow from communication from department to field is definitely still a global thing. And
It's
there's a lot of companies out there working on that. I know there are specific companies that working through Autodesk, like Ravitso, that does a lot of collaboration from field. I don't know if that works with Vectorworks or anything out there.
yes, it does.
Um,
It does.
oh, it does. Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So communication's getting there, but I can only imagine the class you're in, having these all in the same room and then having them talk to each other. I used to work at a modular factory, so
Oh
anytime I got
yeah,
something wrong, they would kick in my door because my door was right next to the plant. So
yeah,
I
perfect.
you learned real quick. Yep.
Yes.
I imagine that's kind of how your classroom was a little bit.
Yeah. No, but it's good. it's the first time you can have this conversation for a lot of people. So why not doing it? And I think everybody can benefit from it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Mm,
100%.
yeah,
I did want to kind of learn about your journey. So
yeah,
I know in Switzerland or even in Europe in general, the I don't know if there is or isn't, but is there a BIM path that you can follow? Is it something you learn about in your
mm,
like elementary days, or is it like university days?
mm,
Like out here, it's architecture, engineering, or trades,
mm,
and then
yes,
eventually all of those combined fall into a BIM of some
mm,
kind. And if
yeah,
you ask anyone over here, they're like, "Oh, I just kind of fell into it." So I'm
mm,
curious how that kind of works out there.
okay.
So let's start at the very beginning. What really got you? Where were you at, like coming out of university or coming out of
Mm.
elementary?
Yeah, let me start. Yeah, beginning of when I started architecture or
Okay.
studying architecture, 1999.
Okay.
So, and our professors told us, don't use CAD. You have to work by hand in the first year.
Mm-hmm.
So I was always into computers. So what I did is I learned AutoCAD,
Mm-hmm.
printed it out, transparent paper, and drawing on top.
Interesting. So you just made it through architectural school.
I always like to combine these two worlds, the analog and the digital one. And I think
Mm-hmm.
both have advantages and
Mm-hmm.
just use it. So I hated when somebody told me, yeah, you're not allowed to do it. So
Yeah, you
it's
have this
actually,
technology, use it.
yeah,
Yeah, I totally
yes,
get that.
exactly. And learn how to make the best out of it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
100%.
as you can imagine, during university time, BIM was no topic at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so when after university, I started to work in Dubai and Abu
Okay.
Dhabi. And we
So
did,
what were you doing in Dubai?
yeah, we did these high-rise buildings. So it was a
Were
very
you
small
were you a
Austrian office.
project manager, or
No, architect,
you were
planning,
architect out there in Dubai?
planning,
Okay,
yes.
awesome.
And yeah, we had a client, and he loved to come in our office, and yes, we were fun for him, basically.
Good. And so I assume you were starting to do BIM out
We
there
looked
in
into it. We
3D.
looked into it. So we
Uh-huh.
looked into buying Revit. The
Mm-hmm.
usual story: you want to do BIM, you buy Revit.
Mm-hmm.
We failed.
Well, the thing about BIM is a process. You
Exactly.
can't, and so whatever software you use or whatever you get to building information management, whether it's BIM or an Excel document
Mm,
or Revit or Excel document, it's BIM.
exactly.
Um, and I love that. So keep going. I want to hear more.
Yeah. So we completely failed with Revit. It
Okay.
didn't fit into our workflow, and we didn't understand that we have to change our way of thinking and
Mm-hmm.
approaching it.
Yeah.
So what we did is we did build up a quite elaborate CAD system with references and Excel exports and automatic layouting and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
I think actually it's somehow BIM already because we
Mm-hmm.
really had this automated workflow. So client gave us a call, and half an hour later we could print the new brochure to hand over to the client.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I would agree that if you have a built-out CAD system and
Mm,
AutoCAD, and you have Lisp routines and automatic, things that are working for you in a 2D platform, like you said, you're handing
exactly.
out documents in an hour, right?
Yes. Yes.
That is a BIM workflow.
Yes.
Now, it is not a truly accepted one at the moment, but I do think that there are people out there that are efficient in CAD and it works for
Mm,
their process, and they should not change.
yes.
There's a lot of people
Definitely.
out there that are still using CAD or even as SketchUp for some reason. Like that, people using SketchUp or whatever, if it works for their workflow and they
Yes.
don't need to do any further, or they don't, I don't want to say if they don't want to grow, but if they don't have to do any further to get the job done,
Mm,
right? I
yeah.
think they stay with that workflow until their job or their kind of workflow or their company changes direction and now all of a sudden it's requiring
Mm,
more and more. Then it's time to think about, okay, what kind of updated software can we use?
yeah. But I'm a big fan of choosing the simplest tool available for the job. And
Mm-hmm.
if it's a hand sketch, it's a hand sketch. And to communicate with the construction site, sometimes a sketch is the best and quickest way.
I would agree. I definitely handing some napkin sketches out or real quick and be
Yes,
like, look, this is what you got to do. Quick math. Boom, boom, boom.
yes,
You know,
exactly. And why
I
not?
think that's awesome.
Or
Yeah.
SketchUp. I love modeling in SketchUp. It's quick. You can be very precise if you want to. You can be, yeah, quick and dirty if
Hmm.
you need to. Perfect. And
Yeah.
if you don't need more, why not?
It's great for 3D mass and kind of getting that
Yes.
idea out there. Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
Hmm.
So, what'd you do after Dubai?
After
How'd
Dubai,
you get to Switzerland now?
yeah. After Dubai, I went to Germany because actually in the small office, I learned what we have no clue about processes and project management.
Okay.
And I was so annoyed with it, but I wanted to learn it.
Hmm.
So I came back to Austria. I applied to a few different big offices, mostly doing commercial bad architecture, but having the processes in place and knowing how to get the job done. So
Awesome.
we did build some office complexes, stadium, and I was always involved in this late planning phases to the construction. So really getting the pressure from the construction side. Hey, Simon, the plans are missing. What shall we do?
Yeah, there's definitely a rush when it comes to BIM. It's kind of like, it's required up front. People say like, yeah, we want to do this. We want to do
Mm,
BIM. So have your 3D model and everything.
yeah,
But then they really don't take it into consideration. They start hiring out the BIM after like 2D plans are made and
yeah.
designs are made. It's like, we kind of got to be in that process the whole way.
We made the same mistake in one of the projects. We had a BIM team, we had the normal planning team. All
Yep.
the young people were in the BIM team. I was already considered experienced, so I was in the other one. And yeah, we did the planning in 2D when we handed it over. And of course, the BIM team was late.
Hmm.
And all the mistakes we found in our planning, we couldn't consider it or change anything because we already did build with our plans.
Right.
So
And I'm sure as they were coordinating in 3D, they found way more than
yeah,
probably what was in
definitely,
2D.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens a
So
lot where BIM team kind of gets put in the back burner on that one.
yeah, and it's completely waste of resources, time, and
Hmm.
good, good manpower.
So what happened
Yeah.
after Germany?
After Germany, I met my wife or
Congratulations. That's
girlfriend at this
awesome. Yeah.
time, actually in New York. So in the US, and when she came to Europe, found a job in Switzerland, and yeah, well, I moved to Switzerland.
That's well. So what I need is I need to be swept off my feet in New York and move to Switzerland. Got it. Yep. Check it. No, that is awesome. My wife actually, she when she turned 18, she did kind of like a road trip over the over Europe. Spent
Oh,
a lot of
nice.
time in Germany, and then went to Switzerland. And now we've been married. She goes, I don't care. We got to take a trip out there. So,
Yeah,
Simon, if
you
I ever
should
make it
come.
out there, we'll definitely have to meet up.
Yes,
Um,
definitely give me a call.
yeah, I definitely. We'll be on the same time zone at that point, so it'll be
Yeah,
nice and easy
at
to
least.
communicate. So, how did you get into creating your company, Abstract?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a longer story actually. So Switzerland, I started to work as a client rep, and after a few years, I got really bored, and
Hmm.
that's when I found this class about BIM. So
Okay. Oh, so you
digital
didn't know
project.
about BIM
Yeah, I
until
knew about it, but
yeah,
it was not a big thing at this time. So
gotcha.
in Switzerland, it started in 2012. This class was one of the first classes ever about the
Hmm.
topic. And I remember some meetings in Switzerland with 50 guys, all nerds interested in BIM, coming all over the country, meeting in Zurich and discussing. And yeah, that's how it all started for me, basically. So I was always into computers, into using computers intelligently. But 2012 to 13,
Hmm.
my BIM journey really started.
I want
Yeah.
to hear about your BIM journey now.
Mm.
So we got through how you got to where you're at now. Now I want to hear how you brought Abstract to the forefront, and you
Yes.
got people using it all over right now.
Yes, actually, we have 26 countries, something like that, who are
That's wild.
using
So how
abstract.
was that
No,
process?
yeah. It started when I worked for a general contractor or a total service provider, a
Hmm.
wood construction company, very advanced, so robotics and modeling for the robot, all the production processes perfectly in place. But cost calculation, that was my topic. So how
Yep.
can we use the model from the architect, the external architect, to do our cost calculation or the quantity takeoff? And
Hmm.
we completely failed. So we did the model requirements, model checks, but it was faster to do the print out the plan and just measure by hand.
Oh
And
wow. Well, that's no good.
no, that's not good, exactly. And at this time, I looked into what do we receive from the architect in a good quality, and we got the spaces, so the emptiness between the walls, the
Hmm.
doors, and the windows. Because whereas these are all elements that are modeled with a tool, so
Okay.
no problems or no chance for the human to mess anything up.
Yep. Human error. Yep.
Yes. And when I thought, okay, what is the interior wall? It's just the emptiness between two spaces. I can teach the computer. And yeah, during a vacation, I did sit down and just started programming a little bit and did the first prototype of abstract. Yeah.
How did you get into programming? You skipped that whole part. When did you
Uh,
start programming?
no, actually, I've always been interested in programming, but I never got the knack for it. And at this vacation, I did sit down. I had a problem to solve, so I did it.
That's typically a CEO story is how'd you do it? Well, I just sat down and I did it. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it was really painful. So I remember having headaches. Okay, how does it work with this if then with a loop? I think
Yep.
actually the loop was the biggest problem for me to understand. And then one time, zack, I got it.
And I'm sure you celebrated probably when you
Yes,
found that out.
yes,
And I'm
I
sure there's
did.
a lot of developers out there that can definitely relate to that. Um,
Yes.
so I've talked to a few developers now, basically about their journeys, and they're so
Mm,
different from
yeah.
like just doing it to like doing classes when they were 13, 14 years old.
Mm,
So
yeah.
it's crazy that like I don't think it's crazy, but going in and having to learn development is kind of a common occurrence I've seen
Mm,
across a lot of these BIM leads in the industry. They know how to develop code,
yeah.
right?
I
Um,
mean,
so abstract, you had the first beta out there. You figured out how to do the loop. Um,
yes. And
how did you grow those other coordinates in it? Because for everyone out there who's listening, abstract is basically takes IFC models and runs it through calculations to see like massing, right? I believe it's massing. There's
yeah,
other couple analyzing that it does, right?
no, what we are doing is we clean up BIM models.
Oh, okay.
So basically, we tell the architect, model as you want, especially in early design stages,
Hmm.
focus on your job to do a good design. We take these models, and when we have some processes in place, some algorithms that clean up the model so that a quantity surveyor can use them or for thermal simulation. So,
Right. Okay. Yes. Simulations. Thank you. I was
yes.
looking at it earlier today, and I remember you doing simulations and a lot of analyzing tools for that. I
Yeah.
didn't know you did model cleanup though. So
Yeah.
for model cleanup, Architect gives you a model. Let's say they have like two windows on top of each other. Would Abstract get rid of that other window for
Yes.
counts?
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
So basically, we really only need the models with the spaces, the doors, and the windows. Everything else we throw away. And
Hmm.
when we calculate a completely new model, and
Wow.
because we calculate it, we can really say, okay, the interior wall is called interior wall. Okay, here are two windows on top of each other. We throw one away.
So
That's
you basically just made a uh, well, I was called what they call like a shit show director for a while. Um, when
yeah,
when they had to clean up a model like
Yeah.
the double wall. And so you basically just made a shit show director for everyone who needs their models cleaned up, especially when they get to you, right? So
Yes, exactly.
that's incredible. Like
So
I'm sure
automated shit show director. Yes.
I love that. And if you guys out there listening need that, you need to contact Simon today, or get on his website, Abstract BIM. That is awesome, Simon.
Yeah.
So
And
how was it growing up trying to understand the architectural industry? Like what got you into architecture?
yeah, I wanted to study medicine first.
Oh, okay.
And when I learned that you have to learn everything by heart,
Yep.
and I thought, no, that's not my world. And I talked to a few people, and I was always interested in technology, interested in art, in philosophy. And yeah, why don't you study architecture? It combines everything. And well, that's how I ended up studying architecture.
Like, yeah, it sounds good. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to start my own company.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, and I
awesome.
loved it. It's great. It's a really interesting field, and
So I kind of try to avoid architecture as much as possible going to school. So I went for drafting tech, and I was like, I want to be
ah,
mechanical engineer, drafter. I'm going to do all these
mm,
like car parts and stuff. That was like what I was going for.
yeah,
And then down this path, I ended up not following through and getting jobs with that, and having to
mm,
start a career over. So
okay,
I'm 25 at the time, where I
mm,
realized that this drafting career is not going to work for me. I can't get any higher up. I want to go change. So I want to go be a
oh,
firefighter. And
okay, and
where I was at in Illinois, you had to be an EMT and a paramedic,
mhm,
and a firefighter. So you'd either be on the fire truck or the ambulance, depending on what call you had to go to.
yeah,
And I had so much fun learning about paramedic and EMT, and it is very difficult.
mm,
And so that was my career path at 25. I got out of there. I was 26, it's 27.
mm,
So around 27, my wife and I decided to move out west.
yeah,
Well, the goal was I'm a licensed paramedic. I'm a licensed EMT. I've done firefighting for 3 years, volunteer. I'm going to come out here. I'm going to test and all that stuff. So when we moved out here, I had to find a job.
mm,
So the listeners out here, this is my BIM story real quick. And it's I'm basically going to go over how Chinese food changed my life. And I'll get into that in another show, but I went to go pick up, we flew out here, which is like 26 hours to
mm,
drive. We drove out here with all of our stuff packed in a small car, parked in the parking lot, and we did a bunch of job interviews and flew home. So all our stuff was out here. And so I remember I did a couple interviews, and then I was driving to go pick up Chinese food the night before, and I saw a sign outside of a company saying hiring drafters. And I had a drafting background. And I was like, you know what? I need a job. We're moving out here. I'm going to apply. The next day, my flight was leaving, and I had to. So I picked up that night. The next day, my flight was leaving. So that night, I wrote up a drafting resume. I went up to UPS that morning to print it out, and I walked through the door, and I was like, "Hey, so are you guys hiring? Yeah, we'll set up an interview." I'm like, "But my flight leaves in 2 hours. Can I get an interview now?" you know. Um, they hired me on the spot, and the rest is history.
perfect.
It was great, and I was kind of um, for those 2.5 3 years I was there. I learned a lot about Revit and 3D modeling,
Mm,
and you can say BIM, but I didn't realize how big that community was
mm,
until I left and I started going to these trade shows and speaking out on LinkedIn. I think you and I met on LinkedIn that
yes,
year
we
when I
did.
left. Like, it's just crazy how much support is out there for this industry
Mm,
that so many people doesn't even know it exists.
yes.
And so I think it's awesome. I'm wondering what is the community like out in Europe? Like
Mm,
I know you guys have, what's the 16 050 codes. That might be
so,
UK.
uh,
I'm totally getting that wrong. I'm gonna get blown up in the comments for it. It's
yeah, I
like
don't
the
know.
standard for BIM.
Yeah, it's developing slowly, I would say. So
Yeah.
there are some ISO standards and
Yep.
mostly influenced by the British standards.
Hmm.
But at the moment, I would say the community is it's Wild West. So
Oh.
we are building up how we will work in the future.
Hmm.
And that's actually what I love.
I
Where,
really like how you guys are using an IFC Open BIM platform to kind of build all that on.
yeah. And
So
it's the only
go ahead.
way. It's the only way how we will manage in Europe. It's such a big, so diverse field
Yeah.
with so
Convince
many
me
software
Open
products.
BIM's the way to go.
Yeah. So in Europe, we have the problem every company has a specialized tool,
Hmm.
and we can't say, yeah, you have to work with Revit. And we won't find a project or partners for a project where everybody is using just one tool.
Hmm.
So if we want to exchange information and if we want to exchange model data, we need some kind of open standard.
Hmm.
So, and that's why I believe in Open BIM. So IFC is not perfect, but it's the best thing we have currently.
So typically in a coordination with Revit, right? If everyone's in Revit, they can all see all their stuff in the software at the same time. We can link their models in, we can
Yeah.
build around it, we can coordinate as we're modeling. There's also third party coordinators like Revitzo and stuff that can put them all
Yes.
together. And all the information is there.
Yes.
With IFCs, I've had difficulty either exporting IFCs or bringing IFCs in and losing data.
Yeah.
And that might just be a Autodesk or Revit issue, or maybe I don't know what I'm doing right. But I'm curious, how does coordination work with IFCs? How do you guys like get around
Mm.
the data issues? I'll call them.
Yeah. So you can't import a IFC file in Revit, Archicad, whatever for
Okay,
coordination. It
so
doesn't work.
don't do
So
that. Got it.
yes, don't do that. No, you need with third party coordination tools. And
Okay,
I mean Navisworks, Solibri, Reviso, all these platforms. And with these ones, it's much more convenient when coordinating in Revit. So you can color the different informations and
that's really
really, yeah,
yeah.
focus on preparing the models so that you can coordinate in a proper way. So you split it. Modeling is one thing, coordination is another part.
Okay, that's interesting.
Mhm.
So,
I mean,
how do you guys do design build then? Is it still all in just you just update your models every week or whatever into the coordination? You kind of look at
yes,
that together. Okay,
yes, exactly.
yeah.
And
I
I
mean,
mean,
there's
I
a
did
sim.
work for a design build company, and usually you work together with external partners, with an external
Mhm.
architect, for example, and the same workflow. You're just in charge of the coordination as a project manager and
Mhm.
make sure that it's coordinated and you are interested in doing it.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. I've definitely wanted to work on figuring out a better IFC workflow, just in general, because I've talked to a couple people up in Canada now that are all Open BIM.
Yep.
Open BIM is the next wave. Open BIM's going to, this concept of Open BIM's going to make huge waves in the industry as far as standards
Mm.
and things like that go. And I do believe that Open BIM is going to come to the forefront eventually. I think right
Okay.
now it's very open, and so there's not
Mm.
a standard, and so it's
Yeah.
hard to make a project when there's no standard. I'm assuming what is the common software used out there for modeling? Is it
Yeah.
Vectorworks?
Oh, yeah. Vectorworks, Archicad, Revit. For architects, we have Plan Nova, Revit for MEP. Tekla Structure is picking up in Switzerland.
Oh, okay. So
CADWorks for wood construction. Civil 3D for infrastructure, microstation infrastructure. So
and
very, very
all
diverse.
and all that's getting brought to an IFC, exporting as an IFC and brought into a third
Yes,
party. Okay,
yes,
that's
and
actually pretty neat.
yeah, and for coordination, it works quite well already.
How
Yeah,
how's prefab?
prefab.
What's the prefab kind of out there look like? Are you guys doing prefabrication for like structures yet?
Yes,
Or
yes,
like I've seen some of that already. How about
yeah,
like plumbing, mechanical, electrical, any prefab in those kind of shops?
yes, yes. So I worked for this wood construction company, design
Hmm.
build, and we did, yeah, modular buildings, whole operation rooms, everything already done. Wood, concrete, I don't know how you call it in English. It's concrete on top and wooden or timber beams on the bottom, and all
Okay.
the cooling, ceilings, everything pre-installed.
Oh
So
wow,
it's picking up. It's picking up.
that's awesome. Yeah, I always felt that Europe in general was further ahead in um, converting to like 3D models and stuff like that and getting into 3D because there was so many softwares that did 3D and everyone picked one.
Mm,
Um,
maybe.
in my head, that was always like, okay, coordinating that's got to be a nightmare between people. But if like there's a common IFC standard that people are pushing out, that makes perfect sense.
Mm.
That's really incredible.
Yeah, I think the
So,
thing is, IFC has a standard, a technical
mhm,
standard, and we're
yeah.
still figuring out how to use this technical standard and how to make it, yeah, usable and feasible in projects. So, which attributes do you really need and stuff like that?
So I guess the real question is, what is what does the future of BIM and people coming into the industry look like? Like, are you guys having trouble hiring and filling positions still, or are there people constantly knocking on the door to get a job?
It's really tough to find qualified people at the moment.
Yeah,
So, people who are into BIM will find jobs so quickly.
yeah.
And
I feel
actually, I
like
would love to hire somebody, but it really hard.
so. If anyone's in Switzerland, listen to this. Get a
Yeah,
picture of Simon. He's ready to
exactly.
hire. I've noticed that there's such a demand for the specific knowledge
Yes.
of a person. And I can only imagine it is that much harder in Europe because we just talked about how there's so many softwares people are using
Mm.
that you, someone wants to hire someone who knows Vectorworks and they know SketchUp because this company
Yeah.
did SketchUp or Tekla because this company did Tekla. That's got to be difficult to find that
Actually,
balance.
I don't think it really matters which
Oh,
software
really?
you use. It's more
Okay.
if you have no one software and you have the right mindset, you
Hmm.
learn Archicad, whatever, quite quickly.
Oh,
But
yeah.
you have to have the right mindset.
So is the difficulty hiring finding people with the experience that want to have the right mindset?
Yes, it's really, yeah, this data driven mindset that's not so common in the industry. So most
Wow.
people still prefer printing out, taking the measurements by hand, putting that manually in an Excel file, and then typing it in the calculator to make sure that there's no mistake in Excel.
Holding the two sheets against the light, making sure it lines up from
Yeah,
sheet to sheet.
exactly.
Yeah. Oh, we gotta change that, Simon.
I hope so. Yes. No.
Well,
And for me, it starts with Excel, knowing Excel, sum if, pivot, stuff like that. So very basic Excel things,
okay.
but it's so powerful already when you have data.
Do you have any kind of like vocational schools or especially universities that they go to learn
Uh,
BIM or anything like that yet, or no?
yes, it started. So we have some technical universities.
Hmm.
So all the universities offer now some BIM specialization classes. So either as a bachelor or postgraduate
That's
ones.
awesome.
It's, the offer is here. It's so you
Well,
can
we're
learn it.
building that next generation up. I know
Yes.
recently there's been a lot of growth of BIM at like state level universities too,
Hmm.
at like a collegiate level in the U.S. We've always had like technical schools and things like
Hmm.
that. I went to a technical school,
Hmm.
um, and we learned a bunch of different softwares.
Yep. Good.
But in reality, in the U.S., if you're doing any kind of construction, you're typically in Revit. It's kind of
Mm.
or AutoCAD. Those are your two standards.
Yeah.
You have the occasional person in SketchUp or the occasional person using something else, MicroStation and things like that.
Mm.
It's really it's kind of blowing my mind a little bit how different Europe and US is
Mm.
and how construction I feel like you guys are ahead in construction than we are. but you guys still have the same communication issues getting the guys from site talking to the guys in the building. So
Yeah,
it's
but
it's
I don't know. You know, where the Swiss guys going to the US, to California, looking at Stanford, what DPR is doing, and the
mhm.
US is far away and much further. I don't think that we are so different.
Yeah, I'm starting to realize that having to talk to you a little bit, that we have similar issues, different workflows, but similar issues.
Mm,
Um, no, I definitely think there's opportunity here to bring in a younger generation that was built and brought up with tablets and phones and things like that
yes.
to really come in and capture technology in construction. So I've hired game designers in the past
Oh, yeah,
who,
great.
and they were probably one of my best people I'd hire, right?
Mm,
Because they would go in the back end and they would code what they need to make things happen.
mm.
And if we're being honest, basically what we do is we play games all day. We
Yes.
make 3D games, whether you're a scanner, you're going scanning a place. Um, I mean, there's people out there because Revit has a plugin for a gaming engine,
Hmm.
and so there's people that will take models, and next thing you know,
Yes.
you're playing like games on it, like first person shooters or adventure games and stuff, in the
Yeah.
model that you just built in
Yeah.
Revit or whatever you're in. So
Actually, I had a project at university where we did exactly that. So we played Half-Life at this time,
Half Life, okay,
and Half-Life had a editor, and so we did our architecture project in Half-Life. The
that's actually
professor
really
didn't
great.
like it too much, I have to say.
Well, he didn't know what he's talking about. Everyone now loves that stuff. If you talk to anyone in BIM now, we're all a bunch of nerds that just either
Yes.
loved gaming or loved fiddling with stuff growing up,
Mm.
and now we're just playing on computers all day.
Yes.
And I think what I'm trying to do is get that point across that like construction is, yeah, there's construction, there's trades and stuff, but this thing that was called drafting is now this giant thing called BIM that
Yeah,
includes,
you're a virtual construction manager or
yeah,
construction worker.
yeah.
You build the stuff first on the computer. How cool is that?
I know. I think a lot of times with this industry, we take little things for granted. But
Mm.
I've been wanting to get a game called The Sims. Have you
Yep.
heard of that? What's okay?
Yeah, sure.
So if you build a wall in Sims, you select the wall button and you drag it. It's
Yeah.
the same. It's the same button in Revit. You build
Yeah.
the wall and you drag it. There's no difference. Same keystrokes.
Yes.
And so a lot of times, um, I'll talk to people that like are interested in trying to get into it. I'm like, oh, have you ever played The Sims? And she goes, yeah. I'm like, well, it's like that
Mm.
for adults, and
Mm.
that's it, right? And so I think that resonates a lot with some people, and some people
Mm.
don't get it. Now, the younger generation coming up, they grew up on games, they grew up on, their phones and TikTok and all that stuff, and I think that they have the capability to take programming and the generation we're in now to the next level with construction technology.
Yes.
AI is coming out. I mean, I'm seeing, um, is it CES 24, 23 that just happened in Vegas? They
Mm.
were showing the excavator, the robot excavator,
Yes.
and then the sheet that could be manned miles and miles away.
Yeah.
So it's a remote control excavator.
Yeah.
So to get the equipment to site is 1,000 times cheaper,
Yeah.
right? To get the guy to do the excavator is 1,000 times cheaper.
Yeah.
You don't longer have to pay those insurance premiums because he's not going to get hurt on site. He's sitting in his lazy boy running this machine.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we're really making a turning point in technology. I think that's
Mm.
amazing.
And I think we touched a very good point here. This gamification. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look at Revit, when you look at AutoCAD, well, look really complicated tools, a lot of buttons, not fun to work with.
No,
But why? Why is it that way? It could be so easy. Like, yeah, in Sims, you take a wall tool. The wall knows it's a wall. It's classified. It has a cost value already. It's
yep.
just a question of configuration and making it more approachable and yeah, easier to interact with the computer.
We haven't even touched on VR
Exactly.
and the capabilities of VR. Um, like in the future, I see a building software that is
Mm.
VR only, and is catered to the construction industry for those people that have, you know, blown out their backs and are tired of getting on their knees and are master plumbers and electricians and mechanical structural guys, right? You get them a VR head, you send them in there, you set them up with this program, you say, okay, now I'm not going to teach you how to rev it, but you're going to take these two things and you're going to model the plumbing for this building.
No,
In
what I
VR.
think what will happen with VR is that we stop modeling the walls and work more with the space. So I don't know if I go here, I say, okay, this is a bathroom. Okay, the wall must be a little bit further in this direction. I place a bath tube here. Ah, no,
Mm-hmm.
I turn it. For this, I need to push the wall. Okay, let's zoom out. The living room. Here's the border of the building. Yeah,
So
so
you're really like,
manipulate.
yeah, manipulating the space. I see what you're
Yes,
saying.
exactly.
Put the objects and manipulate the space instead of
Yeah,
like having this outline to put in it. You're creating the outline, like
yes,
your
exactly.
boundaries.
And then all
That's really interesting.
the walls. Yeah, you can calculate it. For this, a computer can say, yeah, this is interior wall, and here we need a column. No, I don't want
Wow,
it here. Let's move it a little bit. What
that's
happens with structural?
and getting all that information right away. So it's
Yes.
not, oh, I got to contact this guy and wait for him to respond or an
Mm,
RFI. It's like, no, as I move this, we're seeing everything that's happening.
yes.
No,
Okay, I
that's
want to look at the forces. How are we distributing? Here it's becoming red. Okay, we let's move this wall a little bit.
yeah. Put a column there, or put an
Yeah.
extra layer, put ply on there, make it a shear wall. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
That's a really interesting concept. Yeah, I think that'd be
I
wow.
would love to work like that.
I've been trying to figure out a VR workflow for standard projects. Right, I know a lot. I know with the new Oculus 3 coming out or
Mhm.
came out, there are some people out there that sit in front of their laptop with a VR headset because they have hundreds of
Yeah.
windows open and they can instantly pull things up and they can see their keyboards and they're working like on a computer but
Yeah.
with 1,000 monitors,
Yes.
you know. And so VR, I think, can really help some efficiencies just in construction. Like I can imagine how many windows do you have open on your internet right now, right?
Yeah.
And okay,
No,
what if you had
I
all those?
closed them, but I was 99 or more.
Yes. Uh-huh. And so I can imagine seeing all that stuff for
Yeah.
not even construction, marketing,
Everywhere, everything.
right?
I'm
In marketing, you always have thousands of tabs open.
yes. And I mean, looking
So
at the virtual world big like that, or that's a
exactly.
huge difference.
But when you want to start that with your modeling, let me know. I'll be your tester. I'll come in.
Yeah.
Simon, we definitely have to reconnect at a later date. Or if you're coming out to the U.S. for any of the trade shows or something, give me a call. We'll definitely have to meet up.
Yeah. Actually, I
But
will
I
be in New York in Easter, around Easter.
okay.
Mm.
What show are you going to?
I don't know. It's some innovation program
Okay,
where I take part in. So,
awesome. Well, Simon, it was great having you on. If anyone is out there in Europe or Switzerland is curious how to get into the BIM field,
mm,
Simon, how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to reach you?
yeah, the easiest is LinkedIn. Just
LinkedIn.
ping me and we connect and write me a message. That's
Awesome. Simon, thanks
mm,
again. I do appreciate it. I know it's late. Well, it's late for me, but I know it's
for
early
you,
for you.
yes.
So I'm glad we can make this work. And yeah, we'll definitely have to keep in touch and do this again.
Yeah.
This was awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Nice
All right.
talking to you. Bye, Alex.